Hey everyone, just a reminder that I do stream on Twitch at StoopChild with 3 O's, giving away 2 awesome skins once I hit 50 Twitch follows there. So if you like my content, check me out. Ask questions, tell me I suck, do whatever you need to do. And if you do enjoy the content, please like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Hey everyone, I am back with the second half of our Transformers 8.11 update show. Today I'm going to be going over the God updates specifically and their impact on Joust. So if you're looking for the item updates, I already did a video of that. That will be in the description below and in an annotation card. Let's just hop right into the changes right now. The first and probably biggest change that is happening in the 8.11 update is a Bastet rework. So she's getting her passive reworked. She's getting some a little bit of a different damage output on her whips, and then her ultimate is getting a complete rework too. There are tons of videos probably out there that you can see what the actual rework itself looks like, so make sure you check those out. I'll try to link one in the description below too, but I'll just go through the changes really quickly. Obviously her old 1 and 3 are getting removed, and she's going to be auto banned in ranked and competitive modes for patch 8.11, so probably not something that you're going to be able to break out in ranked at all. But still good to know, because once the next year comes around, you're probably going to be seeing this god quite a bit. First thing that's happening is her passive getting reworked. She's now going to gain physical lifesteal and physical ability lifesteal when hitting enemies, and additional enemy gods are revealed to Bastet for 6 seconds. So before it was she had 20% movement speed, I think, if she hit a god, and she could track them basically and follow them. She had a little movement speed stim. Against minions, she also has 5% of that lifesteal and upping that to 0.5 per level, whereas against gods she has 5% plus 1% per level, so 25% lifesteal and ability steal lifesteal at level 20. Pretty significant. Built-in lifesteal is going to be pretty nuts. I'm excited to see some of the builds that people come up with for this god. I think it's going to be a pretty unique assassin in the way that you build her. Razor Whip also getting a little cooldown reduction from 13 to 11 seconds, and a re-description of how the ticks work. Before it was 0, 1, 2, 3 seconds on the tick, but the last 1 second actually didn't do damage or something from how I understand it. So now the ticks are going to occur at 0 seconds, 0.66, 1.33, and 2 seconds. So you're going to have, those ticks are going to be a little bit faster. You're going to be able to be even burstier, I guess, as Bastet, which that already doesn't sound good to me, but we'll see what that looks like. A little more damage, damage more quickly, I should say, on that Razor Whip. And lastly, the Huntress of Bast. Completely reworked ultimate. Before, she had the Guardians of Bast that were just basically minions by her side, and it was kind of a stim that did more damage based on every ability, but that's not very unique. That's not very fun for an ultimate, so they decided to rework it. If you've seen this, again, I encourage you to go watch breakdown videos of what this ultimate looks like, but it's basically a deployable Fenrir ult. So it's going to send out this projectile, and if you hit somebody with that projectile, it is kind of a skill shot, long range skill shot. It's going to stun that god. It's going to take a giant cat and pick up that god, bring them back to where you fired the ult from, and then it's going to put basically a Poseidon whirlpool down of sand right where that enemy lands. Not the cripple necessarily, but that vortex which is dragging them into the middle, and that's going to do damage too. Pretty insane ult as far as displacing enemies. I think this is going to be really good in Joust. You can do it over walls too, so it can be kind of a surprise. If you're warding, you can hit this long range snipe ult that brings an enemy all the way back to you. Initial hit, you can see the scaling goes from 180 to 420 plus 100% of your physical power, so that initial hit is already pretty good damage on its own. But then if you do get that god and bring them back to your quicksand, that's also going to be doing 40 damage at level 20 plus 15% of your physical power every 0.5 seconds. 80 cooldown, not very long cooldown, and not very expensive, 80 to 100. So this is going to be a very, very interesting rework. I do think that you will actually see her picked up quite a bit more in Joust, especially because you can fire that ult through walls. It's going to allow for some kind of tricky plays, so if you're not ready for it, you better get ready. Because like I said, I think it's going to be a strong god once it comes out. Cliodhna getting a couple nerfs in patch 8.11, increasing the tick rate of her passive where she gets damaged in the wall from 0.5 seconds to 0.4 seconds. Not going to be a huge deal if you're just going into the wall and phasing through it, but if you're trying to stay in a wall for a long period of time, you're definitely going to notice that your health bar is deteriorating faster than before. Also, tearing the veil, her ultimate, decreasing that initial hit scale from 90% to 80%, so not as much damage initially, and then the rift damage where it's sitting there kind of pumping out damage for a little while and slowing. The damage is not going to be doing as much either, so 35% is going down to 30% per tick. This will help. I've seen a little bit of her in Joust. She can make for some interesting like surprise plays, but I think this will make it a little bit less frustrating to kind of have a enemy Cliodhna in the wall just waiting in the wings, and it's going to be easier to punish her for doing so. So I think this is a pretty good change for this god. Also, one thing to note, I think that this god will be available to play in ranked games come patch 8.11. So right now I don't think she is available in like ranked Joust, but you probably will see her start to get picked up in patch 8.11 because she should be available. Naja getting a little bit of a buff. The ability now deals increased damage to the first enemy hit by the initial ring toss. So most people think of Naja's ring toss as that bouncing kind of ring that does a ton of damage. It's still going to do that, but now you're going to have that first hit that kind of just smacks a little bit harder. So for boxing, for just like 1v1 situations, if you hit that initial ring, you're going to be rewarded a little more heavily. Naja is already a good god in Joust. You can build him hybrid and still be effective. Very good setup for kind of burst mages when you have that ultimate and come down. There's that just perfect setup for a giant burst ability. So having this ring toss hit a little bit harder on that first hit is going to reward those good Naja players that are sniping the enemy gods off that first initial toss. So this will be a good change. Like I said, he's already good in Joust, so this is going to put him up just a little bit further. Thor, Berserk Barrage getting a little bit of a buff, increasing the power scaling on the first couple hits from 35% per hit to 40% per hit. So a little bit more burst. I don't think Thor's as useful in Joust. The global ult is kind of, I don't know, you can't take people as surprise as often or out of position as often as you can in like a game like Conquest. I think he can do okay as a tank. So maybe that's you know, this initial damage is going to help him be a hybrid and still do that kind of significant damage. But I don't know. I think he's still probably one of the lower performing assassins in Joust. So if you're good at Thor, maybe pick him up, try him out for a little bit. But if he's not one of your priority picks, then it doesn't really make much sense to prioritize him after this little buff. So I did say earlier that the Bastet change is probably the most kind of exciting or biggest change. But to some people, I'm guessing this is actually going to be the most exciting change. Zeus getting a little bit of a shift to his Aegis Assault. So before, it was just a shield that would be deployed, and he kind of all his other abilities revolved around that shield. Now, when he throws his shield out, Zeus is going to get 20 to 30% movement speed, depending on what level he's at, and 20 to 40% attack speed. So the premise is that he's not weighted down by a shield anymore. He can move faster while that shield is out, and then once the shield comes back to him, he's back to that normal movement speed. But why this is so important in Joust specifically is because Zeus is a menace in Joust. He can deal a ton of damage. The only way you can really deal with him is to jump on him, and this specific buff is going to make it harder for people to jump on him. I don't know if it's going to make it that much harder. I guess that remains to be seen, but I can almost guarantee that you're going to see more Zeus in Joust because of this change. The good Zeus players are going to be able to deal more damage, get in and out quickly, and just be a little bit safer, which is kind of what Zeus needs. So I think this will probably vault Zeus up fairly high in the mage rankings. Maybe not bannable because he still doesn't have a true escape. He's still not that safe even with the movement speed, but even just a little bump to his survivability is going to make him a lot better. So watch out for Zeus in 8.11. Poseidon is getting a whole host of, I guess I would call them buffs. Tidal Surge, decreasing that tide cost, which is Poseidon's passive. He increases his tide by hitting basic abilities. He gets movement speed and he gets more damage off of that. So having this decreased tide cost on Tidal Surge is just going to allow him to kind of keep that tide meter higher more consistently, which means he's moving faster and he's doing more damage all the time. Trident, decreasing the cooldown 20 to 12 to 16 to 12, so that should help him in the early game a little bit, have that up more often, and increasing that magical power scaling from 20 to 25%, so he's just going to be hitting a little harder there. Whirlpool, same thing as the Tidal Surge buff, decreasing that tide cost from 20 to 15%. So you're taking away less of that tide that you've built up off of that ability. And same thing with Release the Kraken, decreasing the tide cost from 30% to 20%. So if you're using your abilities as Poseidon, you're not going to be penalized as much from your tide meter going down, which, like I said before, is going to allow you to be a little bit speedier at all times and do a little bit more damage. So overall, pretty good set of buffs on Poseidon. I still think he's not that safe in Joust specifically, but obviously the Kraken is kind of always a game changer and can be impactful in fights. So pretty mid-tier mage, maybe low tier right now, might bring him up to that like mid-tier. Muzen Cab also getting a buff here to his ultimate Stinger. The ability now slows the impaled target by 20 to 30%, which is actually really good in Joust. I think AMC can be a little bit of a menace just with the hives all around. He always has that movement speed and kind of poke down ability. Not the safest hunter by any means either, but sometimes his poke makes up for that. And now if somebody jumps on you, if you hit the Stinger, you get that 20% slow. That gives you another opportunity to live when you maybe wouldn't have before. It also decreases physical prots by 30% on that impale target, so you're going to be able to kind of shred those tanks if you really need to. I think AMC is already a mid-ish tier, mid to high tier hunter in the right hands, so I think this will help him out, bring him up maybe to that next just high level. But as I always kind of say, Joust is not necessarily the place that hunters excel that much. If you can stay safe with him and farm up, and that's your game plan, maybe that's what you do. But yeah, he'll be a good hunter. I just don't think you want to pick hunters as a priority. Xbalanque, increasing the base physical power from 37 to 40 and base attack speed per level from 1 to 1.5. That'll help out his early game a little bit. And Branching Bola, increasing the damage from 35% to 37.5%. So this will help his damage. Similar to AMC, I think Xball can be a mid to high tier hunter. Does pretty good early game poke. Pretty safe. Ultimate is kind of a get out of jail free card at times. But again, I would not prioritize hunters. Xing Chen as a guardian / warrior kind of main in Joust. I'm very excited for these changes. Looks like he's getting a kind of a host of buffs. I first started playing Smite when Xing Chen just came out, so at that point he was so much fun to play. He did so much damage. He's kind of fallen off, so these changes I'm very much excited for. Furious Roar, increasing damage over time from 1.5% to 3% to 1.5% to 3.5%. So just a little bit more damage at the later stages of the game. Early game, I think he does really well with that Furious Roar anyways, so later stages, having that do a little more damage will definitely help out. Hook Slam, getting the cooldown decrease from 18 to 16 seconds. 18 seconds is a pretty long cooldown in Smite, so having a couple seconds off that, letting him get that Hook Slam, which is not the greatest kind of guaranteed CC in the world. It takes a while. It's a knockup first. There's things that you can do to get out of it, so having it up a little more often will definitely help him, and decreasing that mana cost pretty significantly, 20 at every single level. That'll make him a little bit more mana effective early too. And then Sky Cutting Axe, the jump away, decreasing the mana cost from 65 to 95 to 60 to 80. So overall, he's going to have more mana to do kind of what he wants to and shift through his abilities, and also he's going to do more damage with them. So I'm excited to try this guy out. I think this will probably vault him up in the Guardian rankings for sure. Some of the things he does is just kind of telegraph, so that's never really going to change. His ultimate is kind of a worse version of an Ares or Cerberus Alp. So you might want to pick those two over him still, but I think how safe Xing is compared to those two makes a big difference too. He's got so much HP 5, and I think he does, the sustain is just insane. So he will be good. Guan Yu having his Taolu Assault decreasing the cooldown from 15 seconds to 13 seconds. Aside from Guan's ultimate, this is really Guan's real big kind of difference maker ability. If you can get those protection shreds off, it can be a pretty big difference in a fight if you need it. Obviously the rest of his kit, the heal, the ultimate, pretty good. It's a little bit underwhelming, so having this Taolu Assault up more often will just help Guan out in the long run. He's already good in Joust too. I think he's probably one of the top tier warriors, but this will just help him do a little more damage a little bit more often. Freya getting a little bit of a buff here. Her ultimate going to be untargetable while rising into the air. So now you're not going to be able to be interrupted once you hit that ultimate. Kind of a quality of life change, but makes her a lot safer. She, I think, struggles in Joust. People can jump on her so early that she's not going to be able to get to that late game where she really excels. So I wouldn't prioritize her by any means because of this change, but if you're a Freya player who only dies because you get plucked out of your ult, then maybe this change is for you. And lastly, Camazotz, same exact change as Freya basically, now going to be untargetable while he rises into the air. So you're not going to be able to get interrupted when you're going into that Bat Out of Hell ultimate, which I think this is a more impactful change than the Freya one. Camazotz is a lot more viable in Joust. He can do a ton of damage very, very quickly. He can sustain with his pools, and then the ultimate is either a really solid get out of jail free card or chase down tool, kind of guarantee the kill tool. So he's a really good assassin in Joust. I think he's maybe just a tier below like Fenrir and Naja. Yeah, those are probably the two that I would put up there most often. But Camazotz lacks the CC that those two have, but definitely a ton of damage. And he can build hybrid, which is really what you want to do in Joust. So there you have it. That is all the God changes coming in patch 8.11, dropping on November 16th. You also get the Transformer skins in this, which I didn't really go over, but those look pretty sweet. If you're into Transformers, definitely check those out. If this video helped you get up to date with all the God changes and helps you kind of stay current, please leave a like, subscribe, follow me on Twitch. All of those things help. If you comment too and let me know what you thought of the video, that helps me know that you're watching and that my content is valuable to you. But either way, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you guys next time.